Pam Bondi just got destroyed in Congress and couldn't answer 11 critical questions about corruption in Trump's DOJ. What she's hiding will shock you. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell because we're exposing the truth they don't want you to see.
Excuse me, let me do this because I think it's valuable that the American people get a sense of what you've refused to answer today. So these are just some of the questions you refused to answer, or have answered with personal attacks on members of this committee. You were asked whether you consulted with career ethics lawyers, as you promised you would do during your nomination hearing, when you approved the president receiving a $400 million gift from the Qataris. You refused to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played, or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question.
You were asked, law degree,
excuse me. You were asked, did you discuss indicting James Comey with the president? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did you approve the firing of antitrust lawyers who disagreed with the Hewlett-Packard merger? You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you support a restoration fund for violent insurrections to attack the Capitol on January 6th. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether you were firing career professionals, career prosecutors, just because they worked on January 6th investigations. You refused to answer that question. You were asked by my California colleague whether you believe government officials, like immigration officials, have to abide by court orders. You wouldn't even answer that question. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing.
Oversight?
Excuse me, you can attack me after my time is over.
You've attacked all of us, including President Trump, for your entire
career. You can attack me later, and I know you've got plenty of canned attacks. We've heard them all day to day.
Canned attacks on you?
This is supposed to be—
No one needs a canned attack on you.
Regular order, Madam Chair. I'm trying to speak. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing of the Justice Department. And it comes in the wake of an indictment called for by the president of one of his enemies. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing, and it comes in the wake of revelations that a top administration official took $50,000 in a bag, and this department made that investigation go away. This is supposed to be an oversight hearing when dozens of prosecutors have been fired simply because they worked on cases investigating the former president. This is, and now
what
the current
about the
president—
fires in California?
And
Do you
this
care
is
about that,
supposed to
Senator
be—
Schiff?
this is supposed to be an oversight hearing in which members of Congress can get serious answers to serious questions about
Are the riots in LA serious?
About the cover-up of corruption, about the prosecution of the president's enemies. And
I think you owe the president an apology.
When will it be
your entire career, frankly,
that the members of this committee on a bipartisan basis demand answers to those questions and refuse to accept—
Clearly you're a failed lawyer because you don't understand when someone can and cannot answer a question.
Refuse to accept personal slander as an answer to those questions.
Personal slander?
With
Will
that,
you apologize
Madam Chair,
to Donald Trump
back.
for slandering him? Personal slander.
Senator
may I ask unanimous consent, Madam Chair, to introduce into the record the statement of 1,000 former Justice Department officials who warned that the Comey indictment is a democracy-threatening abuse of power. May I also request unanimous consent for the introduction into the record of 282 former career officials at the Justice Department raising an alarm who were voluntarily or involuntarily forced to leave the department because of improper actions taken by the Department of Justice. May I introduce, with unanimous consent, the Justice Department manual that talks about when initiating and declining charges are subject to impermissible considerations. And finally, Madam Chair, may I introduce the letter from Michael Ben-Ari, a career counterterrorism prosecutor, DOJ, a letter he nailed to his door, which concludes by urging officials to do the right thing for the right reasons, to follow the facts and the law, and raises the alarm that the decision to remove experienced career officials from U.S. attorneys' offices, the FBI, and critical parts of DOJ undermines our country's abilities to counter terrorist organizations, malign nation-state actors, and countless others that seek to harm our nation and its citizens. And he believes that the priority is prosecuting the president's enemies
or are you admitting
rather than protecting the
Bondi,
country.
1 moment.
May I have unanimous consent to enter these into the record?
Without objection.
Thank you. I yield back.
Senator Brett.
Senator Moody, may I clarify one thing he entered in the record? I just want to say that I believe he entered a letter by 200 and something former employees. Well, I believe the spokesperson for that letter was also the spokesperson for Jack Smith.
Senator Brett. Thank you, Madam Chair. General Bondi.
Patriots, what we just witnessed wasn't just a hearing, it was a masterclass in accountability by Adam Schiff. And Pam Bondi? She couldn't answer a single substantive question about corruption in her own department. This wasn't incompetence, folks. This was a deliberate cover-up happening in real time before our eyes. Let's start with the bombshell that should be front-page news everywhere. Tom Homan, Trump's deportation chief, allegedly took $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents. In a bag. On tape. This isn't some conspiracy theory, for major media outlets confirmed it. The FBI has it on video. And what did Bondi's DOJ do? They made the investigation disappear faster than evidence at Mar-a-Lago. When Schiff asked the simplest question, did Homan take the money? Bondi tap-danced harder than a Broadway performer. She wouldn't say yes. She wouldn't say no. She just kept deflecting to "it happened before my confirmation." But wait, it gets worse. The White House press secretary went on record saying Homan never took the $50,000. So either she's lying or Bondi is. And when Schiff pressed Bondi on whether the press secretary was telling the truth, Bondi praised her character instead of answering the question. That's not how innocent people act, patriots. Here's what really gets me fired up as someone who loves this country. This is your Justice Department. This is supposed to be the institution that protects all Americans, not just the president's golf buddies. The DOJ's motto is literally Capro Domina Justitia Sequitur, who prosecutes on behalf of justice, not who prosecutes on behalf of Donald Trump. Let's break down those 11 questions Schiff laid out, because each one reveals a piece of this corruption puzzle. First, she wouldn't answer about Trump's $400 million gift from Qatar. That's not pocket change, folks. That's more money than most American cities have in their entire annual budget. And it came from a foreign government. Our founders are rolling in their graves. Second, she wouldn't explain who flagged Trump's name in the Epstein documents. Why would the Attorney General need to hide this? What connections are they desperate to keep buried? Third, she wouldn't say if career prosecutors found insufficient evidence to charge James Comey. You know why? Because those career professionals, the ones who've been doing this job for decades under both parties, probably said there was no case. But Trump wanted his enemy prosecuted, so they did it anyway. Fourth, she refused to confirm whether Homan paid taxes on that $50,000 bribe. Think about that. Even if you take a bribe, you're supposed to pay taxes on it. That's how they got Al Capone. But Bondi won't even address this basic question. 5th through 11th, she stonewalled on everything from the legality of military strikes to whether immigration officials have to follow court orders. She wouldn't even confirm that government officials must obey judges. That's not just concerning, that's authoritarian. But here's what really breaks my heart as a patriot. Over 280 career prosecutors, people who dedicated their lives to justice, were forced out because they wouldn't play political games. These aren't partisan hacks. These are professionals who put criminals behind bars, who fought terrorism, who protected our elections. 1,000 former DOJ officials signed a letter warning that the Comey indictment was a democracy-threatening abuse of power. 1,000. These people served under Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Obama. They've seen it all. And they're telling us this is unprecedented corruption. Michael Benari, a career counterterrorism prosecutor, literally nailed his resignation letter to his door like Martin Luther, warning that firing experienced officials makes us less safe from terrorists and foreign enemies. Think about that. We're making America vulnerable to attack because prosecuting Trump's enemies is apparently more important than protecting our homeland. And when Schiff tried to enter all this evidence into the record, Bondi's only response was to attack him personally, bring up Hunter Biden, and accuse Democrats of lying. Classic authoritarian playbook. When you can't defend your actions, attack your accusers. You know what really tells me Bondi knows she's covering up crimes? When guilty people are questioned, they don't just say no. They attack, deflect, and create chaos. That's exactly what we saw. Every single time Schiff asked a direct question, Bondi either attacked him personally or changed the subject. The most chilling moment came when Schiff asked if she consulted with career ethics lawyers before approving that $400 million Qatari gift, something she promised to do during her confirmation. Her silence was deafening. She made that promise under oath, and now we know it was a lie. Look, I'm not naive. Politics has always influenced government to some degree. But using the Justice Department as your personal hit squad while letting your buddies take briefcases full of cash? That's not politics. That's what happens in dictatorships. That's what Putin does in Russia. That's what happens in banana republics. This hearing revealed the terrifying truth. We now have a two-tiered justice system. If you're Trump's friend, you can literally take cash bribes on camera and face no consequences. But if you're his enemy, they'll manufacture charges against you even when career prosecutors say there's no case. Patriots, this is bigger than Democrat versus Republican. This is about whether we still believe in the rule of law, whether we think bribery should be investigated regardless of who your friends are, whether the Justice Department serves the people or just one man. Adam Schiff did what every senator should do, demand answers from our government. And Pam Bondi showed us exactly why those career prosecutors are fleeing the department like rats from a sinking ship. The question now is, what are we going to do about it? Because if we let this slide, if we normalize attorneys general who cover up crimes and prosecute based on enemies lists, then we're not going to have a democracy much longer. If this makes you as angry as it makes me, share this video. Call your representatives. Let people know what's happening. Because sunlight is the best disinfectant, and right now, our Justice Department isn't just dirty, it's a cesspool of corruption. Stay vigilant, patriots. The truth will come out. It always does. And when it does, remember who stood up for justice and who covered up for criminals.